Yes, ma'am.
So if you're proposing this as more than, just a thought experiment, how would you go about encouraging the establishment of such enterprises, and how would they be able to compete against existing corporations?
Well, very briefly, although the work has been done. First, the question of competition and the question of how you would begin to set this up. Here's a thought. To take from the American history as we know it, which is a useful way to start. We already have enterprises in the United States that cannot compete with big corporations. But we believe as a nation that they ought to be supported. So they are given preferential treatment by the government, which subsidizes them. Let me give you two examples. One is something called the Small Business Administration, the SBA, been in the United States for decades. Here's the idea. It's important in our country, so the legislation that established this, it's important in our country to have small business. We shouldn't just have big business. Small business is the backbone, the rap. And so the government subsidizes small business. I don't know if you know this. It provides them with cheap materials. It provides them with subsidized credit. It takes a whole lot of steps to give them a special advantage in the market that large businesses don't have. The idea is to offset the large businesses' advantages by giving them a special subsidized existence. Second example, minority-owned businesses. There's a program in the United States that allows minority-owned businesses to get special help from the United States government. Again, subsidized credit, special technical help, access to markets, and so on. All right, here's then a thought. We currently have something between 20 and 25 million Americans right now who are unemployed, underemployed, or have even stopped looking for work, but would like to have it. The estimate is around 25 million. Here's the program. The government provides for these people the technical, financial, and other help to organize businesses. But under this proviso, only in this new democratic way that I've described. Workers will have to own and operate these businesses, which the government will subsidize and help to get going to enable them to compete. This is a program that solves the unemployment problem, puts them all to work. But better than that, it provides, get ready, you'll love this, it provides Americans with freedom of choice. Next to apple pie, that's the best thing we have. Freedom of choice. And here's what it does. It says to the average American worker, we're going to take 25 million of you and put you to work in a democratic, non-hierarchical, cooperative enterprise, so that all Americans will be able to see how that kind of work experience stacks up against the one you have in your top-down hierarchical capitalist organization. We'll have freedom of choice. We'll see what the options are and let the people decide whether they'd rather work in the one kind or in the other. Second freedom of choice. We would be able to go to the store, and at the store we would see a label, say, inside a shirt. And instead of the label saying made in China or made in Bangladesh or made in Ecuador, there'd be a second little pad on the seam saying made by a democratic enterprise as opposed to a stinky old capitalist. And it would say stinky old capitalist. So that people would have the choice. It's like fair traded coffee. You can buy the coffee that supposedly has been fair traded versus the coffee that is made by a stinky old capitalist coffee company. We would now have the freedom of choice to choose. If we believed in democratic enterprise, we could buy our socks from that company rather than the socks that are brought to you by Burlington Mills. In other words, we would have a program based on American experience which provides a way in a competitive environment for these kinds of enterprises to survive. Even without that, there have been this is all documented. There have been enterprises in Silicon Valley and California, the strip between San Francisco and San Jose, every year, hundreds of engineers quit their jobs with Cisco and IBM and all the big companies, and they get together in little groups of 20, 30, 40, 50. They take their laptops, they gather in somebody's garage, and they make something. They work on their software programs. And they have a rule. Everybody's equal here. We work Monday to Thursday. By the way, it's where I got the idea. Monday to Thursday, we work on software. Friday, we sit around and make all the decisions. What to produce, how to produce, where to produce, what to do with the profits. You know, and many of these companies are quite successful. So successful in making it that there's a demand for their products. They need more people. That's a moment of truth in their history. When they need more people, they have a horrible series of debates. Some of them say, we started the business, we put all the energy, we took all the risk, we'll get more engineers, but they'll be our employees. They won't be what we have. The other group says, are you crazy? The reason we did this was to set up a different kind of enterprise. If we bring in more, they have to come in exactly like we are, equal, otherwise the whole point of it is lost. Sometimes one side won, sometimes the other side won. That's why some of these firms ended up being capitalist enterprises later. Others of them didn't. But that struggle should have been done on a nationwide basis. We should all be engaged in the debate. What do we want as a society? More output at the price of a work experience that looks like this? Or less output? Come on, we're already in that debate, right? Those of you that care about ecology are busy saying we can do with less to save our nation and our natural relationship. Well, if our relationship to nature may require us to take a little less, maybe our relationship to ourselves and our co-workers in the thing we do more as adults than anything else, 5 days out of 7, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, that's our life. Maybe the experience in that workplace, if it were transformed, would do more to transform our life than anything else we could do. And if that means a little less consumption, that may not be a very big price to pay. Why isn't that a debate? Every bit as important as our relationship to nature and ecology. And on the same terms, look, I didn't make this up. This is all doable. This is a question of whether the population of this country is yet persuaded, that includes us in this room, that what exists is so dangerous, so awful, so predatory, that we are prepared to look at real alternatives and begin to think about how to get there. Can I be sure that we'll get there? No, no one's going to ever. And anybody who tells you they're sure about the alternative is a person you should stop talking to quickly. No one knows. You think that people in the Soviet Union made the change because they knew where they were going in 1917? They hadn't a clue. And the French in 1789 didn't know either. They knew what existed was intolerable. They had some vague idea of something that might work out. They tried that, and we're living with the results. That's unlikely to change. But it is certainly something that there's a framework in our history and in our thought processes to allow us to begin to pursue. One last thing before we adjourn. One of you asked me to talk about something called the North Atlantic Left Dialogue. So I'm going to tell you what it is. About 2 weeks ago, I went to Berlin, Germany. I was away for about 5 or 6 days. And I spoke there at the university, the Free University of Berlin, which is a major university there, about the economic crisis. But I also attended a meeting called the North Atlantic Left Dialogue. It brings together left theorists and activists from the United States with those of Europe, mostly of Germany. And it took place in the offices of the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation, which is a very large and very well-funded left-wing, foundation in Germany. I believe I've told you about it before, but let me tell you once again. Germany is different from the United States. You probably knew that. And not just because of the language. Under German law, to give you an idea of options for the United States, under German law, if you get more than 5% in a national vote, a number of things happen. First, you get seats in parliament. And you get seats exactly equal to the percentage of your popular vote. So if you get 5% of the popular vote, you get 5% of the seats in the government. That's called proportional representation. We don't have that in the United States. We did have it in parts of the United States in the past. We don't have it now. Actually, we do have it, don't we? We have it in the primary system for our political parties. If Obama and Clinton run in many states, about 25 states, if one of them gets 40% of the vote, the other one gets 60, that's the proportion of delegates they get at the convention. So we actually have proportional representation, but not in our general election. In Europe, it's the norm. So in Germany, if you're a left-wing political party, and they have one of those, it's called the Die Linke party. By the way, in German, Linke is the word for left. So the Die Linke party is the left party, that's all it means. They got, in the last election, more than 5% of the vote. They got 11.9% of the vote. 1 out of 8 German people at the polls voted for a left party, one of whose basic slogans is, Germany can do better than capitalism. Here's a second interesting thing. Not only do you get a percentage of the seats in parliament, and the left party has 12% of the seats in the German government. It's a very important player in all German politics as a result. But here's another thing you get. The government of Germany says that if you get more than 5%, you are an important part of German society. And your political party should be able to present itself to the public, to conduct research, to conduct public forums where people can hear about your perspective. Because, heaven to Betsy, it wouldn't be a democracy if the different points of view that are important to Germans were not available for people to encounter and consider for themselves. So the German government allows each party that has more than 5% to establish or designate a foundation. And the government puts the money in the foundation to enable it to present its perspectives to the population as a whole. Therefore, the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation of Germany is funded by the German government. And the reason for it is democracy demands no less. And even the conservative governments of Germany have not dared touch this rule. It's like what exists in other European countries that have no private universities, only public. And when you ask them why, they look at you as if you're crazy. And they answer, we are a democracy. We can't have two classes of university, one that's private and expensive, and another one that's public and cheap, because then, of course, the rich and powerful will send their kids to Harvard and Yale, and the rest of you will go to CUNY. We won't allow that. There will be no private universities. Can you imagine?